record has been rumbling around in my brain for quite some time. It does come from a deep passion that came early on towards electronic music from the early 90s.
Right, yep.
Rave scene, especially in the UK. Sadly and wonderfully silly music, but beautiful stuff. And yeah, like a sweet tooth, almost like a toothache of cheesy synths and sped up female vocals and these things. Stuff that I now collect and I love passionately, and so I want to do my own version of that in record form. So Love to Make Music 2 is kind of my ode to a bygone era of UK rave music, but with plenty of my own touches, I guess. I can't resist. Well, the process is different every time. Record to record, it really becomes this kind of, it's almost like the goal is to find a new process to make a new sound on the record. A lot of the time, especially with this kind of age of everything being at our fingertips, you know, every sound you ever want, every synthesizer is somehow, somewhere you can find either the real version of it or the virtual aspect of it. And so it makes this limitless canvas. And so if you're really coming down, you want to make a series of your standard 13 tracks over 45 minutes or whatever the standard is nowadays, if we're talking DVD audio or something crazy. But with those kind of standards in mind, you have to hone it down. It has to be less than limitless. So typically, most records, it's like finding a voice to express yourself in. And even though I have certain harmonic ideas that I think are sadly chained to on most of my records, I can't escape that much. But technique-wise, it changes quite a bit. And you know, be it a rhythmic idea or a melodic idea or just a timbre, a sound, these kind of things. So in that process, a lot of the time, my early works, I think, were really focused around finding samples that weren't necessarily the beginnings of tracks, but were aspects of borrowing into older production. Like I love the sound of the studios from the 50s and the 60s, so it makes a lot of sense to sample that period of time, to have those kind of microphones, to have reel-to-reels when as a veteran producer, I don't have access to those things. And then later on in my production ideas, maybe my later records, I've kind of borrowed into both recreating samples more so rather than just sampling, and just really finding what the techniques they were using and just trying things like a lot of creative gating or musical compression or these kind of things that are, you know, things that have been done for years and years, but you just find your own voice in it.
Yeah.
And I've gone through everything from you know, totally circuit bent synthesizers being the basis of sounds, and then constructing from that to vocal work that is the basis of something, to rhythm, to melody, to whatever it is. I mean, like, it's worth exploring and trying. You could say a plug-in trick, but it's really just more of a musical trick that I find good with BFD, good with drum machines, is really have fun with reverb into compression. When you take a reverb that's kind of wet reverb where it's kind of splashy, and you compress the living daylights out of it, you can really basically circuit bend the software because it starts to not comprehend itself to a degree. The splashiness of the reverb would usually be kind of in reverse, where you get loud sounds that trickle down, get softer in a reverberant space. So when you put a compressor where it squashes the initial sound but makes the trails larger and larger, with BFD or something where you're dealing with, you can take some of the typical kind of standard rock sounds that are maybe not so compelling. For some people, electronic music producers, for instance, they might instantaneously go for your 808 kicks or your Roland sound sets or your kind of big sounds, your hip hop kits. But put that through a rock kit or one of these country kits, something that's kind of thin and flat. You put a reverb on it and then a compressor, and suddenly it's this, like, it reverses the whole thing. It makes it this huge sounds. And then if you gate that subsequently, you can really control what you're dealing with and make a whole new sound out of it. So basically, don't discount any of these kits. You might just start throwing away kits because you're like, well, I'm never going to make a rock song. I'm not that kind of producer, blah, blah, blah.
Right.
That stuff is gold. And anytime you can tread in a place that people are afraid to, or people haven't really mind, you're in your own territory. You're doing something that's a lot easier to be free from judgments in a way because you're doing something unique in your own.